Well, here we are. Elijah Campbell from the postgame show, Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. We're here from the scene of the crime. The crime, you might ask? That's South Carolina coming into Kentucky's house, this house right here, getting into this end zone a plethora of times and blowing out Kentucky, the 10-point favorite, 31-6. Who is this team, Jack Veltri? Where was this last week? Well, doesn't matter because they came in here now. They're technically first place in the SEC. There's so much to get to, but Jack, when you look at this game right now, 10-6 at halftime, there's about a stretch of 3 or 4 plays in the second half that completely twist the fate of this South Carolina team. What did you see in that second half? Because there's a lot to unpack here at Kroger Field.
So the first drive of the second half where Lenore Sellers fumbled the ball twice, but obviously his guys managed to recover it and fall on it. You thought right then and there, at least to me, I thought like Kentucky was going to start laying their foot down, playing better like we know they can. But it just never happened, man. And I think the big play there's a lot of plays that are going to get overlooked in this game because so much happened. Yeah. But Dylan Stewart's sack on 3rd and 10 on the ensuing drive right after South Carolina couldn't muster any yardage on the opening possession of the second half was massive. And then you get the key plays on that long drive. You go for it on 4th and 1, you get it. Mazeo Bennett is left wide open in coverage all the way down there. And then Josh Simon catches a 16-yard touchdown next play. So I think that those first 3 drives, South Carolina's where they didn't get anything going, Kentucky going 3 and out, and then Carolina scoring that touchdown, that was the difference in the game.
Definitely. And I think one thing too, but right before that Mazeo Bennett catch, it's 4th and 1, you're near midfield, you haven't been running the ball really well to that point. I think at that point, Rocket Sanders had 5 carries for 0 yards.
Yeah.
You weren't getting much push on the offensive line. And what do? Line up like they're going to go for it. Brady Hunt goes in motion, gets behind the center, and hard counts well enough to get Kentucky offside. Automatic first down. I think the pass to Mazeo was like the next play after that.
It was the next play,
I
think.
And then you score a play after that, and next thing you know, instead of having to punt and give the ball back to Kentucky with only a 4-point lead, you have a 2-possession lead with a defense that was incredibly dominant, and it really felt over from there because of this defensive dominance. Jack, we looked at Dylan Stewart on the edge, Kyle Kennard on the edge. They showed out last week against Old Dominion, but they did it again today against a better offensive line, a more experienced offensive line, and more importantly, an SEC offensive line. Oh yeah, they did it on the road too. You watch Kyle Kennard, you watch Dylan Stewart, and watch those two along with Tonka and TJ and Boogie, the guys on the defensive line, completely discourage Kentucky from passing the ball. Jack Veltri, Brock Vandegrift threw the ball 10 times
30 yards.
Entire game.
30 yards.
10 times completed, 3 of those. Would you have expected in your wildest dreams, even if with South Carolina playing as well as they did, that they would just completely discourage Kentucky from even trying to throw the ball and drop back to pass?
No, because multiple times this week, I don't know why, I feel stupid saying it, I kept thinking Kentucky's going to throw the ball a lot, they're going to try to test the secondary, and then mix in the run. But it's just like it never happened. And maybe Kentucky was going to plan to do that.
Yeah.
But it just never happened because South Carolina's defensive line, the defense in general, just suffocated Vandegrift and anyone in the backfield. I mean, they had 5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. And like we said before, Vandegrift only threw 3 completions for 30 yards with the pick. And it was a nightmare back there for Kentucky. It was awful. And so much has been made about Kentucky's defensive line and, Walker this, Walker that, and all these guys on defense, 10 returners. But not enough talk about South Carolina's defensive line because if you didn't think about it before, I mean, this defensive line is nasty. And it's not just Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard, man. It's all 11 guys, to be honest, because they are lethal. And if you don't know about them yet, you will soon enough.
Yeah, if you don't know the names, Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley,
they are damn good.
Bengali Kamara, and even go back to the linebackers, Debo Williams. Like, if you don't know these names, you better get familiar because this was a statement game by a South Carolina defensive front. I don't think you're going to see, the slate's not over yet for tonight, for this Saturday, but I don't know if there is a position group in the SEC that made a bigger statement than what the South Carolina defensive front did. And, like you mentioned, with all the talk about Kentucky's defensive line, which is good because Deion Walker's going to be a top 15 pick. Octavius Oxendine's a really good college football player. They have a couple dudes on that defensive line. it just South Carolina's defensive front just completely outshined them. And then on the offensive end, look, it still wasn't pretty at times.
No, it wasn't.
The first half, still, you wanted them to pick something up, but you found a bright spot. Lenora Sellers rolling out to his right or to his left. Mazio Bennett finding soft spots in zone coverage, and that resulted in 2 touchdowns. And then you also got a touchdown, one touchdown for Bennett, one that led to another one. But the other touchdown was to Josh Simon on a really well-layered ball in the red zone. Last week, we're talking about your offense driving, getting into Old Dominion territory, and not scoring touchdowns, settling for field goals. That wasn't the case today.
No, and I think the big thing for me, at least noticing, was Lenora Sellers looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's going to look comfortable this week. How's that going to happen? I mean, look, it is a lot of words that this team is saying, but they were able to back it up today in a big way. And I know a lot of people are going to make it out to be like South Carolina's talking a big game, but they laid it all out there today, and that's why they won by 25 points today. And a big part of it comes down to Lenora Sellers looking so much better at quarterback today. I know the stat line doesn't say that he's a 300-yard passer. It was only like 150-something yards, and he had an interception and a few fumbles, but they were recovered. He had a good day, man. He found he was able to get out of the pocket when he needed to. Instead of taking off and running, he was able to check down the field and find open guys. That's why you saw the precision on the passes he had to Josh Simon, Mazio Bennett twice for long gains. I mean, those are just a few of them, man. He had very good awareness in the pocket today, and I think that's just a big difference when you go back to last week and him making his first start. I mean, it's a night and day difference despite the stat line not telling you the full picture.
Yeah, look, I get it. I will be the first to provide a full mea culpa on this offense. I didn't think they'd score more than 13 points in this building because they were really dysfunctional in the passing game. Even though you had the running game going last week against Old Dominion, you didn't get the running game going until really the second half in this game, but you were able to move the ball enough. And I think that's the thing with the South Carolina offense that we're going to talk about a lot now that we get into the teeth of the SEC schedule is you don't have to be 2019 LSU. You don't have to be 2020 Alabama. You got to be good enough to be able to take care of red zone opportunities and be able to convert those to touchdowns and not field goals. And you just got to be able to avoid losing the turnover battle because this defense, man, with everything we talked about, if they play like this most of the year, they're going to get you into every single game. If the offense can be good enough, then maybe we can see this team really reach its potential.
Yeah, they just need to be 2024 South Carolina. What's not to like about this team? Yeah, they struggle a little bit on offense, but like these are all things that they can correct. Like Lenora Sellers being more aware and comfortable in the pocket and not running for his life every time. That was something he corrected today. The offensive line, you want to say 3 sacks? I say they played better today. They were able to block enough up front to give Sellers time to make these throws. And the defense, obviously, it's great as we know. I think one thing we haven't even talked about yet on special teams, Kai Kroger had a hell of a day today.
Best game in 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. 5 punts, averaged well over 51 yards, and he was outstanding today. Really set the tone to back up Kentucky deep in their own territory. And Kentucky made a lot of self-inflicted wound mistakes too that have always seemingly, the last 3 years of this rivalry, have impacted them and why they lost. But today, combine that with the fact that Kroger was pinning them back inside the 20 and really deep in their own territory, it made for a lot of struggles, and it's a main reason why Kentucky lost this game, in my opinion.
Certainly, and if you want to look at turning points too, I love looking at turning points of games. When Kai Kroger pinned Kentucky at their own 10, and at this point, I think is when South Carolina figured out that Kentucky wants no part of dropping back to pass because they want no part of Dylan Stewart or Kyle Kennard. So when they get to their own 10, they're trying to drop back to pass because they know they can't run on South Carolina. You have a couple of holding penalties that get them down to about their 3 and 2 yard line. And they're holding because they can't keep Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard off of the edge. At that point in time, it felt like not only was South Carolina as a team in control of this game, but the defense broke Kentucky to their own will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just honestly, like, it was murder out here. Like, I think that's just the best way to put it, man. Because, again, they suffocated the life out of Brock Vandegrift today. Anything that anyone thought about this guy being a passer and stuff, and I mean, it's not to say he can't throw the ball, but today, like, anything that South Carolina thought about him throwing the ball just never happened today. And that's a testament to this defense. And another point that Shane Beamer brought up today, that, again, a lot of things get talked about Kentucky being hyped up and stuff, and South Carolina, you know, being overlooked. One thing that I think everyone forgets about is that, you know, while this was Lenore Sellers' first, you know, career road start in the SEC, this was also Vandegrift's first start in the SEC. So to say that, you know, it's Sellers has a lot on his plate, I mean, Vandegrift looked lost out there today. And it goes back to the way this defense plays, because, again, they are the strong suit of this team, and they are the strength that really carries them. But it is the offense as well that played very well today, I think, for the most part.
3 straight wins. Count them. 1, 2, 3 straight wins Shane Beamer has over Mark Stoops in this rivalry, including the last 2 in this building. We have a lot to break down on Monday. 107.5 The Game, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We are going to have so much coverage on this game, so much reaction. We'll take your calls all week, 803-404-6100, starting with the early game at 6 a.m. and ending with myself and Jay Phillips from 3 to 6 p.m. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Jack Veltri. South Carolina 31, Kentucky 6. We will talk to you again next week at Willie B when the Gamecocks take on mighty LSU Tigers. See you then.